against your hands and you try to teach it piaffe, it's going to bolt right out of your hands.
Yep.
So that's why that system doesn't really work. So now what they're doing, if you go online, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. They're poling the horse's front legs. The same thing saddlebred. The USDF has an official guy, who I call their leg whacker, and he trains all these people in piaffe, and he works with a metal pipe in one hand and a whip in the other hand, and he pulls them with a metal pipe below the knees to make them snap their legs up. And he's the official piaffe and passage coach of the USDF. You know, it's so backwards. Which is exactly how people train saddlebred, hopping them the knees to make their knees go up in the air. Ridiculous. But once again, it's the only way you can do it if you've been hanging on the horse's mouth its whole life, because as soon as you try to do this, it's just going to bolt right out of your hand. So the horse has to be in correct contact with the bit before you can do this. But when you do, then it's easy. So the horse trusts me. If you're holding on the mouth of the horse, it's never trusting you, I guarantee you. Good boy! Oh, right there! Oh,
Good boy!
what a good boy!
Good boy!
Very nice. So you see, now yesterday all we got was one diagonal pair left. That's not enough. Boom, boom, two perfect steps.
Awesome.
In just a few weeks, this horse would be, with me. Yeah, I think it's quite good. But it's just good to see how far he's come from this point. Really, really good work. Questions about that? That'll make sense. You could all see it from yesterday to today, right? You saw one step yesterday, went boom, and today he pushed off the ground on both.
Well, when do you start that?
What's that?
When do you start that?
You can start it as soon as the horse is correctly in the correct contact and stretching over its back. It takes a couple of years to develop a good piaffe. And once again, when I start, I'm about to do part of the World Dressage educational thing. I'm doing a whole extensive video on how to teach piaffe. And so once again, when you do it correctly, in the next few days, I would get the horse stretching. So I piaffe horses with their noses on the ground, and they piaffe, and that really gets the back and the forehead lower. So this whole idea that the head and neck, that people have this whole idea about doing something with the head and neck. It just, the head and neck is just wherever is natural for the conformation of the horse, which most horses, unless you have a very expensive one, like look at that one, the neck comes straight out of the body. If you try to make the head up here, like these horses, they're breeding them with saddlebreds and stuff now, so the shoulders are like this, the head comes straight up in the air like this, and then, of course, then they take that big neck and curl it over with a pair of draw reins and make them round, as the case may be. So, but that's all there is to it. And so you can start it as soon as you can have the horse light in the bridle. Now, I tell people all the time, don't really try this on your own. This is something that should be tried with instruction. But on the other hand, people come all the time. Marnie. There you are over there. Who have done this all on in England. When I went, that little girl Natalie had this horse piaffing so well, it's amazing. So if you try it. If you feel like doing it, try it. But if you run into difficulties, now if the horse keeps bolting, like you saw yesterday, I tried in the beginning and I immediately stopped because he was too excited, he was just going to bolt out of my hands, and then I tried it at the end like I did today when he's nice and relaxed,
Well,
So,
I have tried it a few times, and she lifts the diagonal pair, and then I give her a cue. That's all we do.
that's all you got to do. So now start working like for him today. Yesterday he got one diagonal pair, today he got both of them, and not only got them both, but he did them correctly. Once again, this is not a piaffe.
No, right.
This is a piaffe, where the horse jumps.
Yeah.
They jump into the air while they're actually layered. That's very different than what we see all the time today. The horses are just like saddlebreds. They're simply lifting their legs up and putting them down with no suspension. And that's the whole point of saddlebreds and Tennessee Walkers. You hollow the back so there's no suspension in the gait. So a beginner can get up there and, it's just like sitting in an easy chair.
Yeah.
Of course, what I always say is, why don't you just stay in your easy chair?
Yeah.
Why bother? Why come out and torture a horse? Just sit in your easy chair and stay at home for another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But you get the idea.
Yeah.
But so yes, if you're doing it, do it.
Okay.
If you're doing it without difficulty, if you run into too much difficulty, stop doing it.
Okay.
Or come back to it. I don't do it every day like with the horses that I'm starting.
Right.
Some are different than others, like that horse Bailador. I put him in piaffe because he was such a nervous wreck and so hollow that, if you know what you're doing, you can really transform a horse. The horse, perhaps, you guys seen that on my site? That horse was given to us because you couldn't even walk it. It was dangerous. It would literally, you take 2 steps and it would leap up in the air and kick out, like over and over and over again. But with her, she was so crazy, put it that way. You literally couldn't get on her. She was just dangerous, and so I did nothing. I taught her to piaffe, and I piaffed her for 3 months. Did nothing but piaffe for 3 months, which totally transformed her mind. Then we got back on her, and boom.
Interesting.
A year later, my wife was getting her silver medal on the horse. But if I had not done the piaffe, she was just too dangerous to ride. She literally was out of her mind. craziest horse I've ever tried to work. I mean, just because you never know, it would just come out of nowhere. She would explode.
Was that
I mean,
because of the way she was treated? Is that why?
She was raised by a woman in her backyard who was a beginner rider, and she tried to train her. And by the time she brought her to us, the horse was just, broken over the third vertebrae. If you tried to get on her, she would just bolt with you, and the double bridle couldn't stop her. Because once they're broken over and their chin are like this, the bit isn't doing anything at all. So that's what I basically had to do. And once I got the piaffe going and did about 3 months of that till it settled her mind, got on and rode away. So that's how helpful it can be. And same thing with Bailador. He's such a nervous horse, that's why, because it really makes them, if you can get it, it really makes them focus their energy, and they'll start to get frustrated, blowing out, and all of a sudden they just get totally relaxed. So that's what we're looking for. So it can be used in many ways if you're an expert and know what you're doing. But once again, if you don't, try it.
Okay.
But if it isn't perfect, or if it gets too difficult, stop. Just let it go and go back to what you're doing. Come back a few months later and try it again.
And
Simple
send
as
me a
that.
video.
Yeah, but it can start as soon as the horse is over its back in the stretch. You can start piaffing.
Okay.
All
Wait, you mean
good.
before they've done all the lateral
Cool.
movements and everything?
No. I mean, if they're on the bridle, they've done all the lateral movements.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm talking a horse has to be on the bit. You have to be able to stretch it
done all the lateral
and bring it up to
movements.
working gaits
Yeah,
and that sort of thing. That's the general rule. But as I said, now I've been doing this for 50 years, so kind of know what I'm doing here a little bit. But if you know what you're doing and really get a hand in it, you can improve horses a great deal with them. And of course, the foundation of collection is piaffe. If you don't know how to teach piaffe, you'll never really get a horse to collect, because that's where you actually teach the horse to lower the 3 joints of the hind leg.
It looks like it's doing something good when we do it.
Yeah, but that will never happen if you're whacking them in the front legs. Go online and watch these guys. I gave a clinic at the same place where this guy gave a clinic. I'm in one dressage ring, he's in the next one. He's got 15 people in there. They sit on these horses for an hour and a half. He's got them standing in a line. They stand there for an hour and a half with no warm-up whatsoever, and he takes them one at a time and starts whacking the front legs. And they're all oohing and eyeing, because all that's moving is the front leg. All the horse is doing is lifting one leg. It has nothing to do with piaffe.
Right.
And you'll see a bunch of people online doing that same thing. So that tells you immediately, what are they riding, the front end or the back end?
Right.
They're having to stop the front end instead of the back end. So when you watch these things, and when you watch, once again, a good piaffe pushes off the ground and lifts the body instead of just standing there lifting their legs up and stomping and stuff. Okay, who's next?